Whatever you think of the new Netflix adaptation of One Piece, Oda, the creator of One Piece, was a part of it. And we're told that everything went through Oda and there were even reshoots when Oda requested them. And considering that after all these years and almost 1,100 chapters in the manga, Oda got a chance to, in a sense, redo the beginning of the series in light of what he knows now, this new beginning is different and reveals the One Piece ending in a way that the original beginning never did, and never could. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Chill in the Pirate King within and smash that like button if you want to see more One Piece videos like this one, especially about the live Netflix adaptation. Let me know in the comments too. Make this the video you join the Nakama by subscribing and helping us reach our dream of 2 million subscribers on YouTube. Every subscription counts. Thank you, and now without further ado, let's jump into the spoilers and all. So to see the important differences in the new beginning of One Piece, or what we could call the Romance Dawn portion of the series, we first gotta look at the way Oda did it originally. So in the manga, when the mountain bandits come into the bar, Luffy finds himself eating his devil fruit. Before that, he was eating some bread, so it makes it seem like the fruit really wasn't that big of a deal to the red hair pirates since they weren't really taking care of it that well. Yes, they were distracted, but it was ultimately unwatched and available for someone like Luffy to eat. Eventually, Shanks freaks out when he sees that Luffy's stretchy. Lucky Roo says it's not here, the gum gum fruit we took from that enemy ship. Shanks says that was the gum gum fruit, the fruit of the devil. It's one of the secret treasures of the sea. If you eat it, your entire body becomes like rubber and you will never be able to swim for the rest of your life. So yeah, Shanks makes it seem like a big deal, but it seems like he would have reacted the same way if it was any devil fruit. It's also hard to know how much of his concern is for the fruit and how much is for Luffy, who will never be able to swim for the rest of his life. So Oda wrote this beginning way back when in 1997. Now some people might think Oda knew everything that would come next for the next 2.5 decades and beyond, but that's just unrealistic. What's more likely is that Oda probably had some bigger ideas in his mind, but mostly let his story unfold. And we know he's not a superhuman master planner because he repeatedly underestimates how long it would take to end One Piece. But significantly, the Netflix adaptation beginning, as we're going to get into, feels like it knows exactly what's coming. After all, Oda has already written almost 1,100 chapters and has a better handle on the ending than in 1997, and the Netflix show makes changes accordingly. But to understand what I mean, we must get into Luffy's devil fruit, the gum gum fruit, which as we discovered relatively recently isn't the gum gum fruit at all, but actually the mythical zone sun god Nika fruit. So Gear 5 is teased at the end of chapter 1043, where we see a Luffy that should be out of commission smile, and on top of that it looks like his face is melting. We're even told Joy Boy has returned, adding even more significance to this awakening and fruit. During chapter 1044, we learn more, thank you to the elders for shedding some light on the sun god. At Merijoa, it's asked, and I quote, "So we've lost an elite agent and made Kaido angry. What was the point?" End quote. And then Elder Saturn, the one who is currently coming with Kizaru to attack Egghead, says, "What if I told you that there was a potential future that would make us beg for this outcome? It is always better to eliminate dangerous variables." Then another elder says, "In every era, the world government has attempted to recover the gum gum fruit, and not once has it ever succeeded. For 800 years, it is as though the devil fruit is trying to escape our grasp. And it very well might be. Zone fruits contain a will of their own, and this particular fruit has the name of a god. The other name of the gum gum fruit is the zone type human fruit mythical type model Nika." End quote. So when this came out, it was definitely a lot to unwrap. Obviously, the big reveal that the gum gum fruit is not a paramecia but actually a mythical zone is huge in and of itself. Then there's the fact that zones have a will of their own and can even evade the world government. We then see a silhouette of Luffy's new form in the sky as the elders continue to explain, possessing a body with the properties of rubber and fighting in whatever way he fancies, bringing smiles to the faces of the people, the warrior of liberation, also known as Nika the sun god. Awakening brings his rubber body greater physical strength and freedom. It is said that in all the world there is no power more ridiculous." End quote. So we got even more to unpack there. The fruit is associated with the body possessing the properties of rubber, which explains why the government wanted to hide the truth and decided to do it by lying and saying it's just a rubber paramecia fruit. This is the only instance of name changing that we know of in the series. Next, we're told, importantly, that the mythical zone is a warrior of liberation. Makes sense for someone like Luffy who loves freedom and ends up freeing people wherever he goes. And like it says here, he also puts smiles on people's faces. We're informed that Luffy's body will get power and freedom boosts, aka his fists will pack more punch, and his body will be, to put it mildly, impossibly flexible and adaptable. But more importantly, we're told that it is the most ridiculous power in the world, and that it can let the fighter fight in whatever way he fancies. That pretty much means Luffy can do anything, even the impossible. He's only limited by his imagination, if we take it seriously. Back to awaken Luffy, and he says, "Ooh, I can do everything I wanted to do. I think I can fight a bit longer. My heartbeat sounds so funny. This is the pinnacle of what I can do. This is Gear 5, end quote. He then uses this old but newly awakened fruit to beat Yonko Kaido, the so-called strongest creature, which pretty much makes the Sun God the new strongest creature title holder. Now you can say that Oda was aware that he'd do this back in chapter 1. And yeah, he probably was aware of some of it, but there is a lot of ambiguity in the first chapter. Yeah, Shanks does have the fruit, and he does have an over-the-top reaction when Luffy eats it, but it could be just because all devil fruits are valuable and he worries about what it means for Luffy. He sacrifices his arm for Luffy, who ate the most ridiculous of devil fruit powers, and the one associated with Joy Boy and most likely the liberation of the world, but it could also be because Shanks just wanted to save his friend. We don't really see when Luffy grabbed for the fruit in the chest, so we don't really know how it happened. It could have just been open near him and he could have just been like, let's try some of that while I'm eating already. So not saying the first chapter doesn't allow for the Sun God Nika reveal eventually, just saying that it could allow for it, but it doesn't really have to. The Netflix adaptation is a different story though. Oda now, with over 2.5 decades of hindsight, knows 100% the significance of this fruit, the fact that it's arguably the most significant of all fruits, and the Netflix adaptation acts accordingly. Lucky Roo is carrying the box with the fruit in it with other boxes on the ship, and Shanks takes it and says, "Easy with this, Roo. It's worth more than the rest of the loot put together." Here we have the proper emphasis and care we'd expect from a Shanks knowing the truth about this fruit. And considering Shanks is usually a carefree guy, him saying something like this is a big deal. In this version, the fruit isn't casually unwatched at a bar, but carefully stowed away, where it should be the safest. Yet Luffy still wanders in and immediately pinpoints onto it. He takes that specific box rather than anything else around. He's not even eating, mind you. He opens the box and sees the fruit inside. The cinematography makes it clear that the fruit is calling out to him in some way, heavily foreshadowing the fact that zone fruits have wills they can exercise, something that Oda maybe didn't even know when he wrote chapter 1, and so it wasn't really emphasized. And so here, rather than casually grabbing a nearby fruit while he's eating, Luffy pinpoints a well stowed away box where the fruit is and decides to try eating it, and finishes it despite the fact that it doesn't look like he's enjoying it at all. Rather than freaking out here in his usual comedic way, Shanks says, "Luffy, what have you done?" in a serious way, making it feel like less Shanks being Shanks and more like, oh snap, this fruit is important enough to make Shanks get serious. The quote, "what have you done," definitely adds a lot of weight to Luffy's action of eating the fruit. So all of these changes in the adaptation spoil one of the endings, namely that the Gum Gum fruit is not just any devil fruit, but the most important Sun God Nika devil fruit that is associated with Joy Boy and liberation. Shanks treated it with more care and significance, and it called out more clearly to Luffy, emphasizing that it is a zone with a will of its own. While in the manga, it could have been any nearby devil fruit that Luffy could have happened to reach out and eat while he was already eating other things. Later on, Luffy in the adaptation emphasizes again its future significance by saying, "These devil fruit powers are gonna make me the greatest pirate ever, and I quote, all I know is that the Gum Gum fruit is worth more than all of Shanks' treasure and I ate it, so that makes me worth more," end quote. And let's just say someone as big as Shanks probably has a lot of treasure even at this point in the story, so that's saying a lot. It's pretty much another way of saying it's worth beyond monetary value. And after that, it makes sense why Shanks would leave the Straw Hat with Luffy, since the Straw Hat is associated with the will of Roger and Shanks and Joy Boy. Since it's likely that, like Roger, Shanks hopes that Joy Boy will return to liberate the world, and this fruit is associated with that future, it makes sense he'd want Luffy to have that hat since the fruit already picked him. The fact that he was grave when he said, "Luffy, what have you done?" may also mean that Shanks is aware Luffy will have to go through a lot, and perhaps even death if he is to fulfill the prophecy as the new Joy Boy. He might not like putting that pressure and suffering on his young friend at this point, but it's over now, and now all he can do is place his hope in him, and he doesn't even hesitate to sacrifice his arm for Luffy and the new era. And speaking of the arm sacrifice, wow, there are very important differences. And that is very telling as well. In the manga, Shanks is in the water and saves Luffy last minute. So maybe he used insane super speed to just barely save Luffy in time, and so wasn't able to use Conqueror's Haki in time to scare off the Sea Beast. But once again, there is less ambiguity in the Netflix adaptation. Here in the Netflix adaptation, although they emphasize his Conqueror's Haki when he asks the Sea Beast to leave, they make it clear that Shanks willingly sacrifices his arm in front of Luffy. Like, he had the time and luxury of coming over on a boat, saw the Sea Beast coming, and the Sea Beast even hesitated for a bit and just looked at them before attacking and snapping off his arm. It's just impossible to argue here that he didn't have time to use Conqueror's Haki, so it's clear he wanted Luffy to see him lose the arm and to see how dangerous the sea is, probably so he wouldn't cut corners and be overeager, thus giving him a better chance of survival in the long run, and thus better ensuring the chance of Luffy carrying out the Joy Boy liberating the world prophecy. Luffy does respond accordingly and says in the adaptation that Shanks was right for not letting him join the crew since he's not ready. It does a good job of showing how Luffy was overeager, thinking he could rush in, and now he knows how dangerous the sea is, and he gives himself 10 years to train and get ready. Who knows, if he didn't give himself those 10 years because of Shanks' arm, he may never have survived this long. But since he did, it seems clear now that Luffy will fulfill his dreams, as he says, of finding the One Piece and being Pirate King, using his Sun God fruit to become the strongest, and Shanks' likely hope for him of liberating the world, which is tied to Joy Boy and the prophecy. And so for all the faults you can find in the series, from how much takes place in the dark to fan favorite moments and characters left out, there are strengths like an ability to redo key parts with hindsight. And although some omissions and changes in the series did bother me, I still felt the exciting spirit of One Piece while watching this show, and I look forward to season 2. So I'd say that it does succeed as an adaptation, even though I would never say it replaces the original. But let me know your thoughts in the comments right now, and if you like Mythical Zone fruits like Luffy's and want to learn more about them, you won't want to miss my All Mythical Zones and their powers explained video link on screen right now. Smash that like button, help us achieve our dream of getting to 2 million subscribers, and I'll see you next time.